We've already analyzed the main menu, the Castlevania content reveal, and King K. Rool's reveal from the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Direct, but there's still plenty to talk about when it comes to this presentation. And one of the bigger mysteries that has surfaced is what appears to be boss fights in the game. And these aren't your typical stage bosses. We've already seen two examples in the form of Dracula from Castlevania and Rathalos from Monster Hunter, and we talked about both of them during our Castlevania analysis. But we want to dive even deeper into what this could mean, specifically in how it might connect to the unrevealed mode teased on the main menu. But first, let's talk about those boss fights in case you haven't seen our analysis. The stage where Dracula is fought appears similar to the Dracula's Castle stage, except that there's no edge to fall from and Dracula's chair sits in front of the center window rather than his coffin. It's much wider and flatter than most other stages, and that's because this isn't a typical Smash stage. And neither is the one in which Rathalos appears, also being wide and flat, ensuring that players don't have to worry about recovering, but can still be knocked off screen and lose a life. So what's going on here? Well, in the analysis, we speculated that this has to be some kind of new mode, especially since we only see a single fighter taking on the bosses. Could this be the new primary single-player mode? It might make sense given that the two boss stages look awfully similar to the boss arenas from Subspace Emissary in Smash Bros. Brawl. However, in both Dracula and Rathalos' case, the narration mentions a chance to fight the two of them, meaning it's not a guarantee. That likely indicates that these potential boss stages are not part of a Subspace Emissary-like mode, in that you explore a series of preset levels and bosses. Not exactly, anyway. Instead, it might be closer to the adventure mode from Melee. In that mode, there were specific sequences that only occurred if certain objectives were met, so it was possible to skip some events entirely. Perhaps these boss fights work in a similar manner. You could fight Dracula as long as you complete the right tasks. And if it is an adventure-like mode, maybe players will have to make their way through a stage based on that boss's franchise. After all, we did see Luigi wandering through Castlevania, and before that, Mario and Mega Man joined Samus for an adventure through a completely new area that was still distinctly Metroid. Defeating enemies from those franchises and confronting a boss at the end would be a great way to give even more representation to the series featured in Ultimate. Of course, it could just be a boss rush mode where players fight them in a row in arenas based off of their games. It might be similar to the All-Star mode with limited recovery items. But there's also a third possibility. What if this boss mode is the same as the mystery mode blurred out on the main menu? We already released a video that took a closer look at this blurring and how a fan on Twitter by the name of Noctulescent deciphered it as spirits. Well, this has since been expanded upon by Nintendrew on Twitter, who combed through the Direct frame by frame and has seemingly deciphered the logo in a similar manner to the text. So thanks to these two, we have what is almost certainly a spirits mode. Now, what does this have to do with the bosses? Well, think back to Luigi in the Castlevania reveal. He literally has his soul ripped from his body by death and becomes a spirit. And even before that, we saw both Mega Man and Mario speared by Ridley's tail. Heck, even Dedede might be Dedede dead after the blow to the head King K. Rool gave him. Death does seem to be a common theme. So what if much of the Smash cast has become spirits thanks to these villains and now have to be rescued? Sakurai has stated after all that only the original characters from Smash 64 might be available from the start, and that a new method of unlocking characters would be featured. Literally rescuing their spirits from bosses would be a pretty different way of going about it. It could also lead to some amazing representation from across every series featured in Smash Ultimate. Whether it goes the adventure mode route where a stage and enemies based off that franchise must be navigated before confronting the boss, or it's kept as a simple boss rush mode, there are so many possibilities here, especially if we look back at past bosses throughout the series. Thanks to Brawl, we already have PD Piranha, Rayquaza, and Porky as bosses. Then there's the stage bosses from Wii U and 3DS like Yellow Devil, Metal Face, and the Dark Emperor. But obviously we probably need a few more than that. This could be the chance for so many more villains. We could see Dr. Eggman in his Death Egg robot, Dr. Wily in one of his Wily machines, Dark Matter or even Zero Two from Kirby, Kraid from Metroid, or even the return of Wart. Finally, the possibilities really are endless. But let's bring it back to spirits and the idea of rescuing characters. If this is the concept behind it, the mode can't be too long. I mean, since we only presumably start with the original 8 or 12 characters, that's 58 to 62 characters that need to be rescued, at least as of right now. So we can't imagine it being too long, which might negate the idea of an adventure-like mode. That is, unless multiple spirits can be rescued at a time. Or maybe it's a boss rush where 3 or more characters can appear depending on the difficulty. And considering how many different characters we saw fighting Dracula, these bosses might be randomized. Again, Sakurai said that Dracula and Rathalos only have a chance to appear. If spirits is what we think it might be, it would possibly be the first time a single-player focused mode was featured on the main menu of a Smash Bros. Game. Even Subspace Emissary was behind the single-player menu in Brawl, but we wouldn't rule out the possibility of this being co-op like that mode. While we could be off in our predictions for the bosses in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and their connection with the Mysterious Spirits mode, Sakurai is obviously hinting towards something. The question is whether we're actually right or not. What about you though? Do you believe the boss fights in Spirits mode are connected? What other bosses do you think we'll see? And could there be another new way for characters to be unlocked? Let us know in the comments and be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Smash Bros. And other things gaming.